Jim Benning at the Vancouver Canucks table, and he's on the phone as we peer in there. Vancouver Canucks for the second straight year will have the 5th overall selection. Had to really feel for Trevor Linden at the draft lottery. That face just went almost white when they dropped back with the second best odds to pick at the draft lottery, and they slipped down to number 5. But Benning on the phone. Do we think they might move this pick?
Well, he told Elias before that there was a trade back possibility, but let's put that aside for a second. Let's look at some of the recent first round picks. Nicholas Jensen, Brendan Gaunce, Jared McCann traded away. Jake Virtanen hasn't worked out quite the way that they have thought. And then you look at Hunter Shinkaruk, another guy that was traded away. The Vancouver Canucks need to start to get things right, and I think they're off to a good start last year with picking Olli Juolevi, although some people wonder about that pick because Matt Tkachuk was taken 6th and was an impact player in the National Hockey League. If you want to have that patient approach, allow a defenseman like Juolevi to be drafted and then develop, play with the London Knights, a really good team. And it'll be fascinating here now to see who they go with as they continue in this rebuild process.
Trevor Linden was the representative at the last 2 draft lotteries in our Sportsnet Hockey Central studios. And when they dropped for a second straight year,
2017 NHL draft belongs
second
to
best odds,
Vancouver Canucks.
and they picked 5th, and yeah, the emotion, he kept it together, but when he was leaving the studio, I had a chance to talk to him. He said, don't expect to see me back here next year, because it's disappointing you dropped those 3 spots. So what's the difference in a player that you might get at 5 instead of 3?
Well, in this draft, it's really interesting because really I think everyone felt that the draft was going to start at 3. So things really opened up from there on out. And what's the difference in that player? Well, you probably get a player who can play in the National Hockey League in the first couple of picks, and then it starts to tail off where you're looking at more of a longer developmental curve.
Brock Besser from 2 years ago was their first overall pick as at 23 for the Vancouver Canucks, and he made his NHL debut, scored. Olli Juolevi a year ago as we go to the podium. Oh, I thought they were going to send him up there. Gary Bettman running a little bit of security. Here's Jim Benning.
We would like to welcome all our fans at our draft party at Rogers Arena. And with our first selection, we select from Timrå, Elias Pettersson.
165 pounds, 6'1", but not a lot of weight there. Played in the 2nd division in Sweden. 19 goals in 43 games. He's got that knack. What are they getting in this player?
There's a couple of things that stick out. When you go back to his club play with Timrå in the Allsvenskan, he played with a player named Jonathan Dahlin, the son of Ulf Dahlin, who was a former Ottawa Senators prospect. Well, in the Burroughs trade, it was Dahlin who ended up coming over to Vancouver. When those two played on a line together, the chemistry was undeniable. When they were off the line from one another, both players suffered. So now you have 2 Vancouver prospects who have good chemistry. You think about the Vancouver Canucks, at some point they're going to have to transition out of the Sedin era, and they might be doing it with 2 Swedes. Here, Pettersson, and then Dahlin that we've talked about. The other thing that you have to remember is that this guy went out for dinner, flew into Vancouver after the Combine, went out for dinner with the Sedins, went out for dinner with Jim Benning, really got a feel for what it was going to be like. If you're talking about mentoring a Swedish playmaking center, who would you rather have than the Sedins to do that for you?
And I agree with you, Sam. I think this is a move for the future here up the middle for the Vancouver Canucks, an area of need for them. You look at, as you mentioned, Henrik Sedin not getting any younger, and then they have Bo Horvat. They're looking for that depth down the middle. Brandon Sutter's there as well. This is a guy that can step in a couple of years, and he plays that poise game that most Swedes do. The thing I love about him most, though, this kid just makes plays, and that's what you love about young players.
Bit of a perimeter player. Scouts wondering whether that's just about survival or whether or not the frame just doesn't allow you to go there.
6'2", so he's going to fill out.
We're looking forward to the launch of Sportsnet 650 Radio in Vancouver, the new home of the Vancouver Canucks. Wonder how long it'll be before we see Elias in the fold. Here's Tara.
Well, we just saw a shot of your parents. What did they say to you at that moment when you heard your name called?
We didn't talk too much. It was a special moment. I told them I love them really much, so it was a special moment.
I know you also feel like you owe a lot to your brother. Your brother was drafted in 2013 by the Nashville Predators. What was that moment like for you, and then what do you think he's feeling right now?
I hope he's proud of me. No, but when he got drafted, we were home in Sweden, in Ånge. I was sleeping and then I woke up for them screaming, and it was a cool moment when he got drafted by Nashville too.
Well, a few screams in Sweden for you tonight. Congratulations to
Thank you.
Elliot?
Tara, an hour ago, Jim Benning was right here, and he said if there's a playmaking center available, that's our guy. Was he always your guy?
Yeah, he's the guy that we honed in on. You know, when we watched him play all year, traded for Jonathan Dahlin, they were teammates, so we spent a lot of time watching them. At the Combine, we really liked him, brought him in to Vancouver. We were looking for a playmaking center iceman, a player that makes players around him better, and we feel that he does that.
Sam Cosentino mentioned how he came to Vancouver, he met you for dinner, he went for dinner with the Sedins. How much does that factor in your decision?
Well, we really got to know him as a person. He's a real good kid, so we're very excited to draft him, and you know, he's got some good mentors in the Sedins. We're going to be patient with him, but we think we got a real good player going forward.
Thanks very much, Jim.
Thanks, Elliot.
Vancouver Canucks at number 5 for the second straight year, and not a lot of people going into this draft had the switch with Hischier and Patrick, but I have to give Sam Cosentino credit. You're 5 for 5 now between your mock draft and what's played out here.
Bang on.
Well, I think things really changed with Pettersson. I don't think a lot of people had him going that high. I felt pretty strongly about my information. I think the dinner with the Sedins is probably something that not getting enough credit when Jim Benning talks about it, but here you go. This is a guy that the only concern that you'd have about him is at 160 pounds, how much weight is he going to be able to put on to compete in the Western Conference?
Be a little bit of a break. So unusual compared to a year ago when we were all in the first 10 picks with the Canadian clubs. We'll have the Vancouver Canucks giving way to the Calgary Flames at 16 and Toronto at 17, and then get into the likes of Edmonton, Winnipeg, Montreal, and Ottawa. How far away do you think?
To understand is he finished 9th in Allsvenskan scoring, and that's playing with men, even slight size. Yes, it's a bigger ice surface. Yes, it's not quite as physical a league, but still finished 9th in scoring there. You look at the highlights, pretty dynamic player.
Really hard to predict that with the wiry players like him at 6'2". I do believe over a couple of years, though, he's going to fill up.
George McPhee ready to make history, Gerard Gallant.